Welcome to Living the Off-Grid Dream, where we talk about how to get land, start a homestead, a retreat, regenerative farm, or community, and live a life of health and freedom, even if you're starting with nothing like we did. We cover all this and how to be financially free while doing it, and the failures and lessons we have learned along the way. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. How are you? It's been a while.
Yeah, man, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good. Are you in the new house?
I am. I'm on the new house, on the new property. If I if I could bring my computer out of the room, I'd give you a little tour.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm excited. So I just kind of wanted to go through, just talk about your journey, catch up, see where you're at. It's been a little bit since we chatted. I just think it'd be really inspiring for people to just, see how you got where you're at.
Yeah, I'm happy to share, whatever you'd like to dig into about, any part of my journey, about this part, this project I'm working on. Whatever you want to, I'm an open book, man.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. I first just wanted to start off like why you wanted to do this in the first place. So like maybe like what your project kind of involves, like what your grand vision is, all the aspects of it, and then why you wanted to do this in the first
Sure.
place.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I'm up to and my grand vision and, why I want to do it, I guess we're all kind of interconnected. Of course, they're all kind of the same thing. When I was in my early 20s, when I was living in California, I'd gone on this interesting journey after I'd left school. I worked in outdoor science, which is this like pretty awesome little known industry where, at least in California, we were following this California state science curriculum for sixth grade, but we were doing it all 100% outside. So we would take kids for typically a week from all over Southern California. We were up in the San Bernardino Mountains in Big Bear and teach them geology, biology, Native American studies, survival, a mixture of like actual school and interesting outdoor stuff. And we would do that every week. And I did that for a couple years. And really that reconnected me with my just need and love for nature and being outside, and, kind of screwed me over for ever being able to work in an office ever again. It was like, yeah, like this is now going to be completely impossible. I kind of figured, I'm going to go do this thing right after I graduate school, because like when else am I going to do it? I'm not going to go work in New York for like 5 years and then be like, yeah, I'll probably go, live in a hut in the middle of the woods with no electricity, water, or, heat. And if I'm going to do that, I probably should do it now. And then, after doing that, I was like, there's no way I could ever go back into kind of like corporate America or a regular job. So, after that, I moved up to Northern California in Berkeley, and I actually lived at a Tibetan Buddhist meditation center for a couple years.
Wow.
And I helped. It was actually a giant organization, international organization, in the Tibetan Buddhist culture. And I actually got sent all over the world pretty much to help them make documentaries. So it was this incredible experience. I learned so much about, I mean, you can just kind of imagine, what it's like living in a organization like that. And then in my time living in Berkeley, I also got, exposed to the scene up there, which is super innovative, and, it was just a really, really enriching environment. And I got into juicing when I was in Berkeley, because our center was right outside of the Berkeley Farmers Market, which was this awesome farmers market, huge, that occurred every weekend. And one day, this guy had this like mason jar of green liquid, and I was like, "What is that?" And he said, "It's juice." And I was like, "I don't think that's juice. I mean, that's not what juice looks like." we're talking about 15, 17 years ago. So this was like
Before juice was like a thing that people
before it was a
like, it
thing.
was
Like, yeah, it was not mainstream at all. And he gave me some, and I just like couldn't believe, well, like one, how good it tasted and how good I felt within a couple minutes. So I started to really dig into the science and the background and the history. That's just like my personality. Like I'm like obsessive, so it's like if I get into something, I will just like study it for until there's like no more left to study. So I just dove so deep into this juicing and fasting, and it mixed really, really well with a lot of what I'd been learning at the meditation center, because fasting and purification is part of almost every spiritual tradition. So I was very, very interested in this element of kind of the mixture of becoming an actualized human being, as part of the special sauce of how do you make a lot of progress in your life as a person to become the greatest version of yourself. So I ended up going to a retreat center in Northern California that specialized in juicing and fasting and detoxing. And it was in Sonoma, and it was gorgeous. And it was this guy, and it was this little center that he'd kind of built himself. And literally the minute I stepped on to this place, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. This is it. Like, this is what I want to do with my life, is, open these. And I also, like, coming from my background, I was like, oh, and here's all the ways I would do it differently to kind of make the experience something more that I think would appeal to a larger group of people. His experience was like very, very, rustic and natural, and it like wasn't a super thought out or planned thing. It was kind of like, if you found it, come on here, I'll make you some juice in my kitchen, and like we're gonna do some weird stuff for 4 days. Like that's
I love those, just like in their most raw format. It's just like whatever happens. Here we go.
Yeah, it was very raw.
The universe brought us together.
Exactly. So, but that's where I really realized, because one of my friends from the East Coast, I'm from right outside of Philly. And one of my friends that was living in Manhattan in the finance industry, like super, stressed out, busy, like so into the drift of life, came with me. And it was just unbelievable to witness his shift over the course of a week. It was like mind blowing. He's a completely different person at the end of the week. And he was kind of like, this is amazing. How are these not everywhere? So it really sunk into me that this is a very powerful tool for healing. If you have something wrong with you, but, not wrong with you, but if you have a health issue that you're working through, but if you are just trying to like upgrade yourself as a human being, it's so powerful. So that really resonated with me. And from that moment on, it was just this essentially preparation and putting together a plan for how do you take what they were doing there at this place, at this little center, and make it into a universal, scalable, potentially able to be international business that was like run professionally and organized, so it could stand on its own two legs and everyone could get access to it. So that's kind of how I began this journey of, where I am today, which is like sitting on the beginning of one of these centers that we're opening up. But, at first I started out by opening a juice business because that was such a big part of it. And like, I felt like I need to learn how to master this art of juicing and cleansing and fasting and nutrition. So I spent 10 years, operating, it still is operating, but, operating this juice business called Juice Doctor, where we specialize in fasting, cleansing, plant-based foods. We went for the whole spectrum of doing retail. We did wholesale. We did subscriptions. We still do all this stuff. So I really had that strong foundation. And then when we met, I guess a year or two ago was when it really, I'd come to the point in this journey where I felt ready to go take the next step, which was taking this all into a unified vision in one place and opening up my version of what I see as the next generation of a retreat center that includes not just like the retreat from the hustle and bustle, the New York City life, whatever you're up to, and just time to kind of chill, but also integrating in this idea of nutrition, fasting, cleansing, body work, etc., into like one beautiful property, which very well because you live on one too. So long-winded story of how we got here today where I'm sitting.
Beautiful. Yeah, no, that's amazing. I love that. I love the reasons behind, why you're doing that, and I can relate a lot to it just with the retreat experience and how powerful that can be. I know that was definitely the case for Shelby and I as well, and wanting to bring more of that to the world. So yeah, thank you for doing what you're doing for starters. And I'm curious to go through. Okay, like you're ready to start. I know that for you, you spent a long time looking for the right property. What was that journey like? Like, how many lots did you look at? How many deals fell through? Were there like other partnerships or investments and stuff involved that fell through?
Yeah. So, well, we had decided, or I had decided that I wanted to do this first location in proximity to Philadelphia area because that's where I built my other business. So it was for a couple reasons. One, mainly though, is like I already had an audience there. So to me, it was an easy connection to say, all right, I already have like thousands of people who have done a cleanse at their own house and have done like online programs with me. So if I'm only 2 hours away, it's going to be hopefully a jump start and like an easy transition to say, if you like doing that at home, you can come up here and do it. So we're also 2 hours away from New York. So this area that I picked, which is kind of like northeastern Pennsylvania, is in between Philly and New York. So there's a big audience of people, and it's also kind of like in the mountains and in the woods, and it's a gorgeous area. So I first said, okay, well, I'm going to draw this kind of like big circle anywhere up here. And then I just started probably like however everyone starts, just like going online and looking at Zillow and realtor.com and etc. And really having no criteria, just kind of saying like, I'm going to put in like anything over 2 acres and with zero budget and just start to see what comes up, and clicked on all of them, like clicked on thousands and thousands of these properties and would read them and like, try to understand. And then I started to hone down the criteria for what we needed for like what my vision was, but also what we were capable, our feasibility and capable of doing. Like, do we want it to already have like electricity and sewer and septic, or are we going to be completely off grid? Do we want to have cleared areas, or are we going to do everything on our own? So really starting to hone in on my criteria. And then eventually we ended up working with real estate agents, because why not, right? Like, you're not paying them unless you buy something. So at one point we had, kind of 3 agents that were, this is a big area. So like someone working kind of in this region, someone in this region, sending me stuff. And then we just started going to these places. We probably looked at 70 properties over the course of 18, like physically looked at them over the course of 18 months. We made offers on a couple of them. And honestly, the ones that we made offers on, I was kind of happy that they fell through, because they felt like this could be pretty good. I could see how we could make it into something. But the one that we ended up purchasing, which is the one I'm at now, when I got onto it, I was like, this is it. This is 100% the place. It was like a for sure. By the way, it was also the absolute last property that, I mean, like there was like no more. I'd looked at all, like I went on my Zillow map and like everything was like gray. Like I clicked on everything over the course of 6 months, seen it all. It was really demotivating. It was just like, I'm never going to find this place. And this was the absolute last place that we kind of brushed off on the list. And we got here and it was like, this is 100% the place. Yeah, but that was our process was just doing a lot of research on my own, then getting professionals involved to help refine that search and like hone in the criteria, and by process of elimination and learning by going to see these places and figuring out that for this area and what we wanted to do, we did want to have some infrastructure. We didn't just want 100 acres of woods. We wanted to have some infrastructure, some connectivity to or ability to connect to the grid. Ideally, some type of structure already there so we could move in and get rolling from day one. So this all, and some open space. So we didn't have to be cutting all these trees down. And, we wanted to find a place that naturally kind of was a naturally good fit for putting some units and developing it. And it wasn't like we were going to come kind of just really manipulate the land a lot, because it's very dense, the woods where we are. And it just didn't feel right for me to go cut down 10 acres of woods. Mm-hmm. So me personally, that's, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It can be very healthy for the environment to do that, but that's just where we fell. So, and then by getting more clear, the right place emerged.
Wow. Yeah, that's really epic. I think that's really cool, because I think a lot of people do get demotivated by the amount of time spent looking for lots and, the amount of lots that they're looking at and all of that. And I remember, you and I have had conversations a little bit throughout that journey where, you've kind of been in that and just like, continuously looking and things falling through and so on and so forth. But, I know people get demotivated while they're doing that. I always try to tell them that every single person that I've ever spoken to that has waited and eventually found the right property, they're always so happy that they did, and that they did wait that amount of time. So, I'm glad that you found it, and it sounds like you got a good deal on it, and you got some extra bonuses and with it as well. What was that process like of like just talking to the owner and stuff like that?
Well, so again, this is all, too, like these aren't, it's almost like not repeatable to do these kind of deals. Like they're very unique. And so our deal was very unique. And this is one of the reasons why this whole thing felt like it was the right property and clicked, because when we came to see it, the owner actually took me around herself. And she was 70 years old. This property is 44 acres. And she's 70 years old, and she was managing it alone. And it was just, she was kind of it was getting to be too much for her. She didn't want to sell it. And she asked me what my plans were to do with it. And I told her, and she started crying and said, this is, if I was your age, this is what I would do. And I so wanted to see this property become something like this, because again, you can't see the property, but it's already perfect for it. There's already medicinal gardens and streams and ponds and lakes and meadows and cleared areas. And I mean, it's already kind of done. So she wanted me to do this. So when we started to negotiate on it, I didn't know how it was going to go, because it was on the market. This was during the pandemic. So I was like, these people can kind of sell this stuff for whatever they want to. Like they can just say, oh, I'm going to charge quadruple, and someone's probably going to buy it, because it was just an insane time. And we offered what we could afford. And we negotiated a little bit. And what ended up happening is the price came down by about 25%. And we got all of her equipment on top of it. So we got, a big John Deere tractor, a 0-point mower, a Bobcat bulldozer. We even negotiated in a pickup truck. So we kind of, we got a great deal, and we also got essentially a starter kit for this property, and we didn't have to figure out what we needed because she was already using it to manage this property, and all the attachments, a brush hog, tills, rakes, all the stuff that just came with it. So it really made it so easy to like pull the trigger, because it was, on the spectrum of our budget and like what I was thinking about spending, it was way high for what you can get property this type of space for. But the fact that it had roads and infrastructure and all this equipment just made it an easy yes.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I mean, that's super incredible. I remember when you and I first spoke about it, the first thing in my mind was like, was she like downsizing and moving away or anything like that? Is that why she didn't need the equipment?
Yeah, I mean, she was, she moved into like, the city, which is like the little town, 20 minutes away, just because that's where her kids lived and her grandkids lived. So she didn't need any of this stuff.
Yeah, she was just happy for it to be put to good use.
Yeah, and she was going to have to sell it. So if the fact that we kind of included it as part of the deal ended up being a win-win.
So how much was the property listed for, if you don't mind me asking?
When we originally came on the market, it was listed for $1.3 million.
So you would have gotten like, you would have saved like almost 300K at 25%. No?
Yeah, we'd say 400.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's super incredible, just from pretty much telling your story and your vision for what you want to do and connecting on a personal level.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that is so underrated. Like, people think that this is like this cookie cutter, like you gotta, do what your real estate agent says. Like, I was like, give me your cell phone number. And, I texted her after I left, and, you're not allowed to do that. The agents are like, stop talking to each other. You're not supposed to do that. You're just like, dude, you're not writing the check. Like, we're going to do whatever we want to do. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit of that, just kind of trusting your gut and that personal relationship, even though it was like very brief, but writing, you could write a letter. I wrote a personal text, and was just like, this is really special to me. I really want this place. This is what we can afford. Then I hope we can figure it out. And it was, magically knocked off that much money. That's all it took.
Wow. Yeah, that's really incredible. And the machines as well. I mean, I don't know exactly what brand they are or what year they are and all of that kind of stuff, but I know for Shelby and I, like, we have financed and been paying off, and some of it we bought straight up in cash for most of the things that you mentioned. Mower, trucks. We just got a tractor like 2 days ago. Like the whole brush hog, all the attachments. Like some of those attachments are like $20,000 for each attachment. Like the tractor we just got is 80. The dozer, we got an older dozer for like 25. With all of that, I can imagine that's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment.
Yeah, when we did the value, it's, because they're nice. They're like John Deere tractors and Bobcat bulldozers. They're not that old either. When we did the math, it was like, getting close to 200K of equipment if we bought it new. If we bought it used, it would probably be around 100K of equipment that came with it. And then not to mention all the little stuff. Well, first of all, there's a full maintenance shed that, like all these are parked inside. So we had a full workshop built, and it had all the little stuff too. Shovels, pickaxes, rakes, saws, workbenches, sawhorses, all, gardening tools, wheelbarrows, ladders, all that came with it. So that's, again, just you're starting from scratch, that, you're going to Home Depot every day. It's like, it's like that saved me like 70 trips to Home Depot, where now I'm just like, before I go, I'm like, let me go look in there. And half the time there's something in a cabinet where I'm like, oh, we already have these.
Yeah, absolutely. Like all the little tools, it's little tools and just little pieces of stuff. I don't know, like it adds up like crazy. Like Shelby
Easy.
and I were lucky that we grew up in the trade. So him and I had established our own kind of banks of tools and whatnot that we needed for like a lot of the main stuff. But we still spent like 50, maybe more than 50,000 on just like hand tools and all of the like little tools that you would need to kind of get going and fill up a shed like that. So that's a lot. Not to mention, yeah, the travel time when you're out in the bush and you got to drive back to go pick something up.
Like, oh no, I don't have this drill bit. It's like, oh God, like see you in three
Yeah.
hours, you know?
And we end up overbuying everything because you really don't want to, like, it costs you 100 or even sometimes us for $200 worth of fuel just to drive
Oh,
to get it. So we may as well just buy the big ass case of whatever we're looking for so that we never have to get anything again.
yeah. Yeah. And so I didn't even think about just that in the time and fuel and pain in the ass cost of all that. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of these things that like every day I'm more grateful for getting this place because I find something new every day that's incredible that I don't have to do myself. So it's just, I guess we pay it. It still was a lot of money. That's not by no means like an inexpensive property. And I'm not, it's like, oh, whatever. It was like we got a good discount, but it was still expensive. But it's we paid for the acceleration in the time. So it was
Yeah.
all stuff that would have taken to get this to where we would where it is today, would it probably have taken us at least 2 years of time.
Yeah. I mean, even building a house, that's a two, sometimes more year project for most contractors or however it's being built. That's sweet. So you're looking for land for about 18 months, and then you found this place. So how long, and you've moved in, so how long have you been living there?
We've been here, it's easy to remember, since Valentine's Day. So I guess about 6 weeks. Is that right? Only 6 weeks, maybe 7 weeks.
Beautiful. That's awesome. So what infrastructure is on the property right now? You got the main house, and then is there any other kind of like cabins and whatnot?
Yeah, so there's the main house, which is a beautiful A-frame. And then we've got a converted barn that we had renters in when we were
Oh
negotiating.
yeah, I remember seeing the photos. That looks so epic, and it would be
It's
such a beautiful place to host retreats and stuff.
it's awesome. So it's real, gigantic, big open room barn with a loft. And the bottom floor is unfinished still, like, there's still actually like troughs and cattle stalls and stuff. But we had the renters move out before because they literally had the best way to describe it is if you have ever seen the show Hoarders, where someone walks through someone's house and there's little paths of like
Yeah.
through their stuff. The bottom floor looked like that. So we wanted to use it for retreats, and we were like, it's going to take us like 6 months if we ever want to get these guys out. So that we negotiated as part of the deal is that it needed to be like, broom cleaned, and all that stuff needed to be out before we close. So we're going to use that as an Airbnb until we're up and, fully up and running doing retreats and stuff. And that will essentially be the welcome center.
Yeah, that's super epic to be able to have something that you can kind of Airbnb right away. That's, year round in any climate and all of that stuff. That's pretty epic. And being able to bolt on like little wow factor stuff, you do a sauna and whatnot, and you get extra rate and you get more bookings and stuff like that. Do you think that you'd be able to cover your mortgage with that?
It'd be close, but we also do have this little tiny lakeside cabin. There's also a 100-acre lake on the property that we back up to. So
Wow.
it's unbelievable. And we don't own the lake, but it's a private lake. So it's just in the middle of anyone who owns a big farm or property. There's only about 10 properties. So there's no buildings on it. It's completely just a wild lake. And there's a little lake cabin on that. already. And then there's another little tiny cabin that's in the manicured garden that's about an acre. So those three structures were already there. I think with those three structures, we will be at 100% able to cover the mortgage. We just need to, the barn is almost done. We need to do a little bit of work. And then the tiny cabins, we're going to need to, put a new roof on them and like clean they're like, they weren't habit. They were just kind of summer houses where people would sit in chairs and no one slept in them. So we need to get them up to snuff a little bit. But once those are all up, I think those three will beyond cover the mortgage by themselves.
Yeah, that sounds really amazing. That's that's sweet. So that's kind of where you're at now. Where do you kind of see yourself going? Like what do you plan on building for, do you plan on doing any kind of like spa elements? Do you plan on more structures? Do you plan on like glamping or tiny homes, or like what's your kind of thoughts around all that?
So I'll tell you where our thoughts are. So we, as we got this property and this vision evolved, I've been juggling with this idea of, do we do something that's really lean and scrappy, or go try to raise big money and do something that's like, one of a kind and, would be in magazines and things like that as this new type of concept. So as going through the exercise of doing the financials, of kind of mapping out how much work each of them was going to take, I got connected to this architect who has designed destination eco resorts in 70 countries in the world. So he has built a spectrum of these places from, domes in Costa Rica to like, Nihiwatu, which was the number one hotel in the world, which is on a private island, and like everything in between. So we decided that we were going to use a big chunk of our budget to hire him and his team to come out here for a week and bring this whole team of people to just stay here and let them come up with whatever they wanted and see what they came up with.
That's so cool. And has that happened yet?
That happened last week.
Wow.
So it was so freaking cool to see these guys, how their minds work. I mean, not at all what I pictured, first of all, they were super prepared. They had done satellite images. They had every single grade of our property laid out, all the vegetation laid out. So they took a very analytical approach of the land, but they call themselves holistic architects. So they essentially are taking like a metaphysical approach first and a spiritual approach of like, what does this land want to be? And then backing into it with the data of saying, this naturally will be a great place to do this, and naturally would be a great place to do that. So they, brought all their maps and things like that. But then we just spent 2 days literally walking like every square foot, and they would take their maps and stop in the middle of the woods and start drawing stuff and, talking and etc. And we had just, not to go super sidetracked, but we also, in our area, there's this organization called the Rodale Institute, and they were the nonprofit organization that developed the USDA organic standard for certifying organic farms. Wow. They have to be an hour away. And by very I don't even know if I should say this, but I'll just say it, whatever, we can edit it out. But so one of the very high up people there, I won't say who it was on an ayahuasca retreat. And my brother happened to be on an ayahuasca retreat, and the facilitators were the same. So this facilitator connected those two and was like, you guys got to meet each other. And then my brother connected me with this guy over at Rodale, and they sent over a farm consultant to help us build a certified regenerative organic farm that is going to follow permaculture practices that's all being funded through state money. So
Oh, wow.
we're not paying for it at all. So this farm consultant was also there the whole time, working with the landscape architects, and the architects kind of saying, if we could not do anything in this section, like this would be perfect for berries, and this would be perfect for an orchard, and this would be perfect for a vegetable field. And so they worked in collaboration to build this map, which they gave us before they left, of their projected plan of how to lay out every square inch of the property, with the whole shebang.
Wow. That's super amazing. That's super fun, man. I love to hear that. Like just the unique factor. I'm really excited to see what they came up with. Are you
I'll
open?
send,
Are
I'll
you open to
send,
sharing that?
I'll share it with you for sure. Like I have the sketch right now. Next week, they're going to send me essentially like a digital, like you kind of like if you're at a
Like a
resort,
3D version.
well, you see a map and it's like, you are here. Like, here's the sauna, here's the lake cabins, like, and they're going to send that hopefully next week. So, I'm happy to share it with you for sure.
Beautiful, man. That's so exciting. So I'm curious, how much did it cost to have these guys up for a week or so to walk the property and to do that design?
So, well, we have an engagement with them. So that week is just part of a big engagement. So I'm not, the week itself costs like, a couple $1,000, airfare and plane tickets and etc. But our bigger engagement with them that we've engaged them for, which is multi-step process that has just kind of started, is going to end up probably being about $45,000.
Okay.
So
So for the whole build out and everything, so you're really going for it. Like you're going for the grand, massive, beautiful, amazing, incredible vision. Um, what's your plans funding wise? Do you plan on bringing investors onto the project? Have you already brought investors onto the project? What's going on that side?
Well, so, kind of tying back to this exercise of letting them do whatever they want, they presented us with this plan that was going for it. It's like doing, stick built eco cabins that are like amazing, putting them on these parts of the property that are amazing, having 20 of them, having tree houses, having the whole shebang, wellness center and everything. And after reflecting on it, it's like, that sounds amazing, but like they're coming from their architect point of view, right? When they're talking about winning awards and stuff, I'm like, I'm not winning an award. He's winning an award. like, I'm just paying for it. So, after kind of the shiny object syndrome wore off and like walking back around the couple of days, it really did just start to sink back into me and something that I've learned throughout all of my experience with all the businesses I've done is being open-minded to everyone and everyone's opinion, especially if you're going to hire experts. But at the end of the day, you got to trust your gut and you got to stick to your vision. And the vision was always to be a place where people come and reconnect to nature, to like have that experience where they're not bitching at you if their pillow wasn't turned down. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to deal with that. Like, I don't want to get into that. So when you build something, even if you make the brand that it's not that, if you build something that expensive, you have to make it nice enough for people to pay a lot to pay it back. And if people pay a lot, their expectations go way, 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 way up.
Yeah.
So as kind of reflecting on it, I really haven't talked to them yet or made a final decision, but have come back to saying, I do want to go back to more of that glamping model. I'm not going to throw away this plan, but we're going to just take it. We're going to tone it down a notch, because also too, this idea of going out and raising money, that's something I'm very comfortable doing. So I don't have if it ended up costing $10 million, I feel like I would have a good chance of raising it, especially having this what they deliver to you, which is this essentially a book that is every detail of your property and the entire layout of how everything's going to work. So they're giving you the pitch essentially, and that's
And
their
it's like, I mean, they're already award winning. They have that, like, they've designed the number one hotel in the world. They have crazy credibility that they bring to the project and have already shown their execution. So yeah, that's extremely helpful.
it's extremely helpful. So that was strategically part of the reason of hiring them, is like whether we do glamping or we do 6 stars, having their name on the plan is going to make that way easier to get financing and execute
Mm-hmm.
because of credibility. So that was, part of that investment was paving the road to get financing on whatever level we wanted to. So they're going to pay themselves that 40 grand, 50 grand is going to pay for itself, because we're going to be able to raise that money when we need to so much more easily with their plan and their credibility attached to it.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I get questions sometimes around planning and whether people should invest in planning or not. And, a lot of people, like, I say invest because I consider it an investment, because even I also think that increases the property value. Like, if you were to sell a property and you have all those crazy plans and everything is like down to the detail, there, like, properties in real estate that have 3D renderings of what's possible with it, they sell easier, they sell for higher prices. Like, that's an investment. And also from the perspective you're bringing is that you're going to spend some money to be able to raise way more money. So it's a pretty small drop in the bucket. And I mean, 45,000 for the whole plan, like, that's a lot for most people. That's the most I've ever heard of anybody spending on like the design. But they've designed the number one hotel in the world, so that's
Right.
what you get. But even going to you're roughing it for some folks and going to a permaculture designer, getting a general layout of things, and then putting together a mood board of exactly what it is that they want to build, or work with some kind of contracting company that does it, that imports 3D renderings on top of that permaculture design. They could do it for relatively cheap, and that's still an epic plan to be able to bring forward to raise any capital.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And yeah, I don't, if people are listening to this and they're like, these numbers are ridiculous, like only rich people can do this. Like, that's not true. Like, what we just did is we strategically brought a property that we don't need to really put any money to start operating. So we can open and make money from day one. We don't need to buy anything. We have equipment, we have places to stay, we have a manicured property. So we're taking our budget and essentially putting it into this planning process to give us options. So that's how we're looking at it, where it's like, we don't need options right now to start to cover our costs and make a little bit of money. We can do that from immediately. But by putting this into planning, it's going to give us options. And also, you've gone through multiple businesses too. It's like, you can figure it all out yourself, or you can work with people who already know how to do it. Like, everyone that's in your group has taken the latter, right?
Yeah.
I want to go work with someone who already knows how to do it. And I do believe that it's really important to have a couple ventures where you're like in the shit and you have no choice but to figure it out yourself. But if you don't have to keep doing that, it's like, I would highly recommend working with people who already know what they're doing. So you have that space to do what you're good at, or whether that's to be the entrepreneur, to be the farmer, to be the retreat facilitator, to be the chef, to be the spiritual leader, whatever it is that you like to do and you're good at. Like, if you can surround yourself by other people who are good at the stuff you don't like to do or don't know what you're doing, and you can do it, like, 100% go for it. It's going to make it easier and faster and probably more successful. So that's how I looked at it, is like, I'd rather spend my budget building like an amazing team of people that are putting together a bulletproof plan. And I've just seen, by just this step, the amount of people who have approached me now, even through these other architects that are interested. It's like I already have a list of people who, if I said we're going to do, a seed round or a proper, round of fundraising, I already have a long list of people who would be really interested because we're doing the process like this. So it is, in my mind, a very worthwhile thing to at least explore.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would totally agree. You need the grit to, be resourceful, but I think a lot of it just comes down to strategy, and that's like I think the main thing that our program kind of focuses on. It's like, okay, here's all the pros and cons and like general information, but then here's how to actually use that in real life to strategize the fastest path to get there. And I think it's hard to define strategy, but it is, I would say, the most important thing. It's like I was reviewing some other programs as we are adding things to ours on the food production side of things, and I'm like, okay, yeah, like, there's people out here offering a program on how to raise chickens, or something like that, and it's like, that's great, but if you buy a program on how to raise chickens, what if you end up raising chickens for 20 years of your life and you never really entertained any other options? Like you said, like you want to have all, like, you want to explore what options are out there before you start taking steps. Because, maybe farming pigs or goats or llamas or bison or cattle would have been way better than chickens, but now you just never knew that, and you spent your whole life on chickens. So like it's I think it's important to open up those options and cover all those bases and see what you have available to you for opportunities. But yeah, I mean, it seems like you're in a great spot no matter what. I mean, you've got a property that's pretty turnkey. You have 3 rental spaces already. Like a couple, you obviously got to do some maintenance and spruce them up. But even that seems like it could cash flow enough for you start to reinvest some of that into the planning phases. And even if you wanted more, you could throw up some bell tents real quick and bring in some more income with that. And then also, connecting with the farming side to be able to get, so that's grant money. I'm assuming that would come in, and they would come and build out your farm essentially.
Correct. So that's another thing, is like, we didn't want to, we wanted to minimize pressure. We didn't want to feel like we had to rush into making decisions just to make money. So, by setting this scenario up, like, we're really quickly going to be able to just kind of float, hopefully indefinitely, and then be able to take our time with going through our strategy and being able to really flush out the different options and pick them based off them being the best decision, not just the one we need to have happen the soonest. So again, that's just from my past experience. Like, it's not really fun to just be constantly under the gun. And I do feel like more often than not, it affects the quality of your output of your vision.
Yeah. And I can attest to that. It's taken, I mean, we've kind of done that route in a way. Like we jumped into it. We had things that went terribly wrong. We had things that we totally overlooked and just didn't know about because it was new to us at the time. And it was tough. It was hard. Whereas like, you're a perfect example of the other side of strategy. If you strategize better, which is, we help people learn from our mistakes. So that, now you're sitting in an epic spot where you have an awesome place to live right off the bat. You have rental cabins and income right off the bat. You have amazing partners that are helping you build your vision, and you can do it in a stress-free way. And you have a family and stuff to take care of as well. So all of that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. And again, there's no really right way to do it. This is just the way we decided to, based off of, the different things that I've learned in the past and what we wanted to do in the future.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this so far. We don't actually do advertisements on our podcast to keep it clean for you, but we did make a video for you that shows you how we started out broke and managed to buy 160 acres and build our off-grid sanctuary, and how we made $30K a month with it. It's completely free if you want it. Find the link in the description or find us on social to go get it. If you think we're a good fit, we would love to help you achieve your goals for land and freedom and for bringing your gifts to the world.
Our goal for my big vision of this is to do the multiple of them. So, and not to be a place necessarily to be a place where it's like a destination where people are flying into, especially picking this area. Like this area isn't really, there isn't really a lot of reasons you'd come here, just like for no reason. So we're like a rubber tire place. Like these are people coming from Philly and New York. Like that's what we're looking at, Sure, we'll maybe have some people that come in from out of those areas at some different points. And we're using this as like a template. So this idea of taking our time, being more strategic, not trying to rush and just make as much profit as we possibly can right now, is because it's part of a bigger picture strategy to do that in the future. And I want to build a solid foundation. And obviously that's how like we got connected, from what I've all been saying this whole time. It's like looking at people who already did parts of this and saying, let's work together. Mm-hmm. Let's learn from each other, because it's always too, and I think also too, as anyone gets into these projects, even if it's like their first project, they still have something to offer, and teach even experts that are coming in. Like when these architects came in and saw what we were doing, I have zero experience developing properties. I have zero experience in this stuff, but they also had never seen a place like this before. They had, of all the different like properties they had worked on and all the visions they'd worked on, they'd never seen one with these elements that I had laid out. So they were super jazzed about it. Now they're going off they left and went to the Galapagos and the Belize. And any wellness project they're going to work on now going forward, they're going to have all the stuff that they just learned from this week. So it really creates like a partnership more than a contractor and a, customer type of relationship. And that's what I feel like is the amazing, that's an amazing thing to come out of these projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the connections and networking and stuff. And I love hearing the stories, that you're mentioning about how you're getting connected with people and whatnot. I think that's just really a big part of it. Like I tried to put that into like a system as to like how does that actually work? Like how do these incredible kind of like connections happen with you connecting with the previous owner of the property, or you connecting with the farm an hour away that's now going to come help you build your farm and get you grant money. All of that, to me it seems very like energetic, very like kind of like spiritual, and you put your intention in that way and it kind of comes out of that. But it's also just like recognizing, I forget what it's called. It's like 6 points. Like anyone in the world is 6 points of connection kind of like away from you. And then I kind of divvy that down because for the most part, everybody that we need to connect with is probably like more or less in our region or in our country. So if you divide the amount of people on the planet into just your country, you're probably only like 2 or 3 connection points away from any given person that you would ever need to build a successful project like this. So your ability to do that becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, everything you just said, I agree with so completely. And I think the first thing you said, it sounds like there's a lot of like outward work going on, but all this gets created with inward work first. It is a spiritual process. Like, the amount of, visioning and just, metaphysical work that I've been blessed to have this incredible experience of my younger life, getting taught by these people who are, they're like living masters. And that is really how this happened. If you want to like boil it down, we live in a mental universe, essentially. It's of thought. And we just happen to be in, the third density of it. which means you got to do something with those thoughts to make it manifest, but they still start there. And if you can do the process of really visioning out what you want and then getting clear on why you want it, which in my personal belief is if you want it because you want to be of service to other people, you're going to have an immense amount of power and support behind you. If it's something that you want to be of service just to yourself, it's going to be really tough. But if that's kind of your original intention, and then you can create a vision around it in your mind, and then just start to see what comes up for you to be able to take action on. Maybe I should sign up for Jamie's course. Like, let me take that action. Maybe I should email this person. Maybe I should attend this conference. Maybe I should join this Telegram group. And actually just doing those little things that pop into your head, not just thinking about them. That's where it all starts to unfold from my experience of turning into these bigger projects, like you're up to accomplishing these incredible things, just from your own vision, right? I mean, that's how it all started. And I believe that your vision also was to be of service to others and be of service to the world. And then you just put it out there and boom, like the world responds. Mm-hmm. So we're down to help.
Yeah, it's so true. Like it's like pretty much everything you just said. Yeah, like starting with the in your mind, with the envisioning and with the intent, but then actually going out and starting to take real action in life. And I really like the way that you put it, because it doesn't always have to be huge actions. You don't have to, I think people get stumped by that because they're like, I don't have money, and therefore I can't buy land. So then they just don't even start. But just beginning, it might be a Facebook group. We have a free Facebook group. Come join it. Like whatever it might be, talking to friends about it, starting to lay out your plans for like how it's actually going to function when it is up and running, and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, we just have so many examples of exactly that happening. We had a client, Carson, he posted in a Facebook group just saying, here's my vision. Here's what I want to do. I'm looking for land. I kind of need some help. He posted in a Facebook group, and he got an investors meeting the next morning, and he got 10 people with properties that wanted to lease him a chunk of it so he could start his glamping thing and, his tiny home thing on these properties and stuff. And now he's actually going and moving on to look at purchasing properties and all sorts of stuff. So it's crazy how your journey can just start with like one little post or one little join or connection or whatever it might be.
It is. It's you're dead on. I think people get into analysis paralysis a lot of how much they need to do to like make something like this happen. But you just need to follow your intuition and like do the next immediate thing. So It's like, I need to understand more about raising money or starting a business plan. It's like, let me look for support for that. Oh, there's a course for $500. It's like, if you can't come up with $500 to buy a course like yours, you probably should start there and figure out how to like be able to have that much money disposable to invest in your own education before you're thinking like, I'm going to go spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars on a property. And it's like those little steps they're like essentially initiations from the universe. It's like, go accomplish this, then we'll unlock level 2 for you.
That's like a great point. And we do get that sometimes with people. And it's like, I can't, like, our prices, like we get people to take our program and they'll go through it and they'll be like, man, you should charge $5,000 for this. And I'm like, well, we don't want to, because we want people to have access to it and whatnot. But at the same time, in my opinion, like there's that value exchange, and it takes us a lot of time. We're continuing to add to it. Like we're coming up with new products and free things for people that are a part of our communities all the time. Like it's constant work. So it only makes sense to me that there's a value exchange there, but we can't go any lower because of that. In my opinion, that's the biggest thing. It's that kind of initiation. And if you are, I think that if people don't have that, then looking for a way, okay, like, how can I spend my time? How can I increase the value that I'm offering to the world and other people so that I can, be able to get into a program and work with people that want to help me get where I want to go. That's
I totally.
I was curious because we were talking last time that you were kind of exploring the idea of bringing some tiny homes and stuff onto the property and then selling the tiny homes and rights to the lot and using that as a funding method to fund the build out.
So we're still considering that model. So if we go down the road, so we did buy a couple domes that we got on sale. So we snagged them just to like have them, and they work well with my brand because it's a a beyond wellness brand. So it's like I said, it's a spiritually minded project, and I love the domes because of their geometry. I love the way that they let the light in. I love them for a lot, and they're super like nimble and quick to set up, and they're super cool looking, and they feel nice to be inside, and they're versatile. So anyway, if we go down that road with doing mainly domes, we probably won't go the road of individually selling them because for two reasons. One, it's a lot. They're 1/10 of the cost of building the nice cabins. So they're going to be easier to self-finance. And two, that's a harder pitch because you're kind of trying to sell someone at 10. And like I mean, so it's like harder to have people that aren't already in this world make that leap of like, oh, it's like a house. Is it a house? Is it a 10? I don't really. So, and also too, if you wanted to go down the road of trying to get a bank to partner with you, this is another reason that we wanted to go down this road is you could get a bank to partner with you, like a local bank that understands your project, that will essentially offer financing to your buyers. So like almost giving them mortgages. So they would only need to put down $5,000 or $10,000 for their tiny home. And then the bank would just pay you upfront the rest. And then they'd pay the bank back as your mortgage. So then the ask is even simpler, right? It's like, do you have 10 grand? Great. You can own this investment tiny home. So now you open up the spectrum to even more people. But a bank, to try to get them to finance a dome or a tent is just, it's not even worth like that effort to try to have them understand that. Yeah. So if we go the big, humongous, top level plan that the architects laid out, we probably will do that like hybrid HOA type of thing model, where we'll sell the units because there will be a couple $100,000 and try to partner with one of the local banks we have a relationship and have them finance it for our owners and charge a management fee essentially.
We do have a good financing guy too that works all around like North America, so US and Canada. So that's how we got our tiny homes financed. So if that was something of interest, I can link you up with him.
That would be cool. Yeah, if we go down that road, that'd be cool. Because to me, it's a really interesting model to explore. Is you're getting nicer units on your land, so it's like upping the value of what you're doing as the owner of it or as the operator of the business, while letting other people who are interested in being involved finance it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So to explain this to any listeners on what this model would look like in like kind of layman basic terms from the ground up, I'm going to use easy numbers just for like this, like these aren't real numbers, but this is like an example. So essentially you would basically sell tiny homes to people. So investors would come in and they would put 10 grand down and go through a financing partner to then pay, I don't know, $1,000 a month towards like financing a tiny home. You get paid all that money up front and probably a little more. So for example, if the tiny home costs 100 grand to build, maybe they buy it for 200K. So you get the extra 100K. And then you do that 10 times, and now you have $1 million in profit, and you use that $1 million to develop the property and all of the infrastructure that the investors, purchasing these tiny homes would then have access to use. And that's why they're buying into the project, so that they can come and use their tiny home when they want. And then when they're not there, it acts as kind of an investment, because you could run retreats there and you could, have short-term rentals, use those for short-term rentals. And then that the tiny home investors would actually get a return on their investment from the rental income and retreat hosting income and stuff when people are staying in their tiny home. And on top of that, you also get ongoing income from that because you would take a management fee for managing those tiny homes. So I think it's a really genius model. We have a client in Costa Rica that did something similar, and they've raised like 3.2 mil. So I think it's a win-win all around. The investors get a really awesome deal, and then they put a small amount of money down, and then their investment actually cash flows and covers itself, and then you get ongoing income too. So I don't know, like it seems really great.
Yeah, and that's when you going back to that idea of the strategy, right? So like it's like how do you start how do you build an 8-figure business with no money? It's like there's a way to do it. Like because you're getting millions and millions of dollars of investment really quickly, but you don't actually really raise money. You're really acting as a developer at that point. It's like shifting the model of like looking at it as more of like a condominium association or an HOA or a private club, but also with a unique twist on it, like you just outlined. And to me, it was really attractive because it is such a win. It's such a win-win-win. Like every party involved is winning in some way. And it's accelerating the pace of which you can do a project like this, while putting everyone in the same boat. Which you've raised money and had outside investors, correct? Before, I'm not saying this project, but in other businesses too, right?
Yeah.
And so when you have people who are just like, I'm going to give you $1 million and I want 1.5 back in 5 years, they don't really give a shit if there's COVID. They're
No, they don't at all.
Yeah, they just want their money that you promise them back. But when you have people who are like invested in the project themselves, because it's like the nicer the property looks, the more that this company is going to rent out my unit for. Then they're like, yeah, go buy more beautiful flowers. Go get a nicer common area, because they see that like the money that's being spent is going to translate into them winning in the long run. That you not cutting down all these trees because you could fit 2 more units. They don't care about that. They want it to be as a nice experience as possible. So it puts like the trust in the right place. So I really like that versus just someone being like, we gave you $1 million and you're not giving us our return. So like cut down these trees and put 2 more units because you're going to make that money back for me. And it's like, we're not in the same boat, right? Or maybe if you're a person doing this type of project just to make as much money as possible, you're in the same boat as your investors, but that's not what we're doing. We're trying to create a magical place for people to come experience a new way of living and be able to heal themselves or actualize themselves as a human being. That the money is just like the fuel for it. It's like it's just food. It's food for the business. We got to feed it. If we want a big business, you need to feed it a lot of money because it needs a lot of food to grow. And it's hard. It can be difficult to find people that want to give cash or something like that. So this idea of attaching it to something physical, like a home that's in a rental pool, that, you're charging a management fee because that's fair and it's stable. But if they let you do what you promised and you do a good job and they get out of your way, you're going to start to send them a check, not a bill, right? Like if people are staying in this amazing paradise you've created, they're getting a monthly income, not a monthly, HOA fee. So, or a rent, like they're already paying somewhere else. So that was the intrigue with that model. We're still very highly considering it. It just depends on essentially the scale of which we go to develop out the units themselves.
Yeah. I think 2 things come to mind with that model. And one is that it filters out, good aligned investors, because they would be buying in because they would also want to take part in what you're offering. And it takes obviously a certain type of person to do that. And 2, it makes it really accessible so that you don't need to know people who have, $10 million to build something out. You just need to know somebody that is willing to put 10 grand down on a tiny home and then be able to cover the payments for 6 months or a year, whatever, while you're building before you start renting it out, depending on what the strategy is. But that makes it accessible for a lot of people, like many people. Like at that point, you could go door knocking and find investors. Like it would, right?
Well, that's it, really. It's like, thinking about like, the people who have this dream and this vision, and not everyone's an entrepreneur, like, thank God, or we would be totally Lord of the Flies, like, country, like some people are, like, not everyone you don't have to be an entrepreneur or a business owner to like want to participate in this movement, in this vision of like healing the earth and like transforming it. So, you have hundreds or thousands of people in your network that probably are curious about getting involved in this, but they're just like, I'm not going to quit my day job and like go do all this shit. Like, and it would be so much nicer for them just to get involved in this like light touch way. And they're like, I've got 20 grand. I don't know. I'm not trying to put it into like Exxon Mobil. Like,
And it's not enough to go buy necessarily the property that they might be looking at with, but
right.
It would be enough to get into a project like yours.
Right. And it's like, who wants it sitting in their bank account? Right. It's like, let me go do something with this. And it can be in a way where they can participate and be part of this movement and put their energy in. And money is just energy in raw form. It can become food. It can become a tiny home. It can become anything. So they want to put their energy into this in a way that is like, it fits for them. And so they get a place that they come and enjoy, maybe for a couple weeks or a month, a year. For the rest of the time, it's being part of this ecosystem that's, allowing other people to come enjoy it and do these retreats and enjoy property like this. And eventually it's going to be a source of income, which is going to create freedom. It's all about freedom, right? At the end of the day. So this is a way for someone to create financial freedom for themselves while creating a project like this, which creates freedom for the guests that come stay there. So I think it's a beautiful, in my mind, it's a beautiful like dance of everybody being able to participate if they want to. And it's one of those like rare, like everyone wins, like no one's losing. No one's like kind of getting fucked, like on the back end to be able to do this.
Yeah, it's really awesome. So I have last couple questions. One, I was really curious what the name of the like town nearby, or if you don't want to say that, like even just the general region, like what is it called?
Yeah, I don't mind. So the name of the town is called German, Pennsylvania, Jermyn. These towns are so tiny up here that like so the Greenfield Township is like the zone that's actually on our address. A lot of times when we get mail, it just says it's in goes to Greenfield Township. And we're in a place called Lackawanna County. This is a very big Native American population that lived in this region. So most of the names of the areas are still Native American names, which I love. I feel like very near and dear to that culture. And another reason I love being up here. So we're in Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania, and Greenfield Township is the area we're in, which is commonly, a lot of people call this the Pocono Mountains, but it's technically not. We're in northeastern Pennsylvania. We're actually in a place called the Endless Mountains.
The Endless Mountains. Wow, that sounds pretty epic.
Yeah, that's cool.
Wow. Yeah, that's sweet. And then I was also just curious. So when you bought the property, like you saved up your own down payment, or did you work with anybody to put that together?
So this is another really interesting financing like story here. So for this property, because just to take a step back, it's like the bigger the game you're going to play, right? The bigger the players that want to get on the field. So we were originally looking at properties where I could put down the down payment. Like, it was going to be like $100,000 or less as the down payment. But for this area, we could not find something that was going to fit these criteria. So it was like, all right, well, if we're going to start to look at 7-figure properties, like I ain't doing this by myself. I can't. So I started to talk to a couple other people and nobody committed anything. So I was like, screw it. I'm going to find the right place. And when I find it, the right person will emerge. So when I found this place and started to negotiate the price, I had no ability to pay for it, by the way. so, so, I had a friend essentially offer proof of funds, but he had no intention of supplying funds, just so we could open the negotiation with the through the agents, because they're like,
Right.
they got to prove they can afford this. So this other guy that had, a lot of cash was like, here, I'll just show them my income statement that I could pay for it in cash, and then opened up the talks. So then as we got down further into the negotiation and the beauty of this property, it's hard to describe. I have to show you pictures of this, Jamie. You got to come visit.
I plan to.
I started to shop it around to these people who had expressed interest in this project already. And I found someone who was interested in it. And being my wife worked in wealth management, I know a lot of people in finance, and I know that if you've got enough cash in a wealth management company, a lot of times you can request them to give you a direct line of credit based off of your assets under management. So are you following me there, or do you want me to dive into that a little bit more?
So a wealth management company that has liquid cash is able to pull a credit line for you. Is that what?
So essentially, if you're like, I've got $5 million and I'm going to give it to your wealth management company, and you go invest it as you see fit, you can go to them and say, I want $2 million of a line of credit, because if I crap the bed, you already have all my money.
Right. So basically, if I was an investor, I could go put, 5 mil into a wealth management company, and they continue doing what they want with that 5 mil, while at the same time issuing me a credit line for however much.
For the lowest. So they will usually give you the lowest legal interest rate. So then you, as a wealthy person, have this company managing your assets, let's say getting you 12%, right, of your $5 million. Then they've loaned you a couple $1 million for 4%. So all that you as the person have done is taken your interest that you're earning on that cash from 12 to 8%.
Right.
And you've been able to take that money and now put it into a new asset. So now you actually add an asset into your portfolio with your line of credit, while you're still
which would actually get you back up or even above the 12% mark. So
correct. So it's this trick that really, really, really rich people play all the time, because now they're taking someone else's money to go buy an asset, and they're actually earning interest on that debt in reality, because the interest they're paying on the loan is less than they're paying on less than they're receiving on their portfolio. So it's essentially free. So I essentially spoke to someone who wasn't doing this. I knew they had the money, and I was like, you should go do this and then just buy this property, and I will pay your interest for you. So the deal we have right now is we are just paying the interest of this person's line of credit on this property, and until we have a deal where we have 3 years just to buy it back for market value at that point.
Wow. Okay. So they bought the property and you're paying the interest, and then you'll buy the property off of them eventually.
Correct.
Okay.
They're essentially saying, I'll hold this for 3 years, and if you guys don't buy it in 3 years, then I may just put it back on the market.
So you kind of have 3 years to either come up with the money from somewhere else, or show proof of concept in the project for it to be able to then, do a deal to buy the land.
Correct. But so we put down $0 is the long and short of it.
Okay, sweet. Wow. Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's something. I knew things like that existed in finance, but it's really cool to hear a real life applicable story of that being used. And also really cool how you were able to use your knowledge of that to educate somebody who you needed that, in your favor. Well, it's in both of your favors, really.
Because now they're like making so much more money in general.
Yeah.
Because they now have this infrastructure set up. Like we kind of got the sweetheart deal, but when the reason they were like, I want to give you a limited amount of time, because now they want to go take their line of credit and go do their own stuff.
Yeah.
So they're like, I can just screw around with a couple $1,000,000 that I'm making money on this debt. Like, I want to go buy my own property. Like,
yeah, no, that's super cool. I really love that, because it just goes to show that that's a really good demonstration of how knowledge can get you a really long way, just by, talking to somebody and educating them, and just having that little bit of knowledge. Like, I mean, I think it could play the same on like smaller scales too. For a lot of people, like a lot of people, like one of the kind of basic kind of investment things that we kind of base our stuff off of is in residential real estate, where somebody comes in and puts the down payment down and takes 50% ownership. So they're putting, 15% down, but they're taking 50% ownership, and then we take the other 50 and we're responsible for paying the mortgage for the rest of it. So that's pretty common deal. But a lot of people who actually would have the money to do something like that with you, a lot of them don't even know that those types of deals exist. They've never been offered that deal. So by going and offering that deal to somebody, I feel like they'd probably look at that and be like, oh wow, I can put 10-15% down, or whatever it might be, and take 50% ownership. That's really, fuck yeah, I'll do that.
yeah. Yeah, it's all these, there is no like the way to do a deal, right? It's just, it's whatever works for the parties involved that makes sense to them. And part of this project for me has been this really fun thought exercise of this idea I told you about earlier, of just like freedom, of just getting people free from like the bondage of the system, the society that's been set up, like this is how you do it. Don't ask questions, just do it this way. And this like, even this financing model to me has been cool, because you're just picturing the scale of which you could move with these types of projects is so much bigger and so much faster if you get good at educating people on this infrastructure, where it's like, hey, if you're like you don't need to be a billionaire, but like if you're a wealthy person, like maybe you did well for a couple of years, and like, what are you doing? You have like your money in like Apple and like, do you care about these companies? Like, if you're not like a stock person, you can leverage your portfolios into real life assets like today, and be able to play a different game without sacrificing your security and whatever you feel like you need to have as, your money that you've made. You can still have it and keep it in, the conventional markets and the conventional investments, but you can use that like a bank does, as you can leverage that debt into real assets that you can get a return on really, really easily if you know where to go and like how to structure that. And to me, this part of this project, just figuring out that structure and making this deal is awesome. Like, and it's part of what I want to do with this, what I want to bring to light through this type of enterprise.
And now you have that knowledge for the rest of your life, which you could use for not just this project, but for anything that you really wanted to do, which I think is really cool too. Like, we've had clients that have almost no experience with any financial industry, anything, and they've never spoken to an investor. They've never even thought about speaking to an investor. Investor is probably like kind of a scary, intimidating term, even though it's just, another human doing their thing who also doesn't know what the fuck's going on, because we're just spinning around on a big rock. And they get introduced to somebody who has money from a friend of theirs, or a friend of a friend, or whatever, like through whatever network they end up. And it'll be like a surprise, right? They'll be like, oh my God, this person just reached out and said they could connect me with so-and-so. And then they like go into this Zoom call or meeting or whatever it ends up being. But if folks go into that with some financial knowledge, which is, a part of what we do our best to provide in our programs, they would be able to potentially help this person out. I think people tend to think that people with money just know everything for some reason. Like people just think that that's how it works, but that's actually not the case. And often we can help them, show them a really cool path that they can take. That's an opportunity for both parties.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, I think a lot of people who have money have no idea what they're doing with it. They just like kind of like happen to get it. And they're like, oh my God, what do I do with this stuff? And they just do what everyone else does, which is, take it and save some of it and put the rest into like a portfolio. And like, that's not what they want to do. They just don't have another option. So being able to, even if you've never talked to an investor or raised money before, being able to talk to them on this level, which isn't like, it's logical, right? It's not super complicated. It's just saying like, this is how the system works. And like, here are some ways to optimize it. That's impressive. And someone with money that didn't like know it or wasn't articulated that option that clearly is immediately going to feel more comfortable with you as someone to trust their money with. If you are just a little bit versed on this type of stuff, I think, I was a was totally into this, like, or what's the word I'm looking for? I had been infected by this mentality for a long, long time, especially when I was living in the meditation center, that like having a lot of money is a bad thing. Spiritual people don't have money. Like the monks we work with wouldn't even touch money. They like physically, you'd have to like put it in a bag for them because of the temptation of using it incorrectly. So I had this like idea of just, if you are focused on money or you have a lot of money, it's like this negative. But I realized, over the course of the last decade or so, that that's just completely wrong. That, using money correctly and like being a steward of it it's the way the world operates, and it's a very powerful tool, and business as well. Like I think one of the best ways to change the world is start a powerful business. Like that's how shit gets done. And you can't just kind of say like, that's not right. Like you're not going to win by fighting, the monster. You win by like creating something that's as big as powerful, that's just on the positive side of it. Mm-hmm. So I think money and business are these things that well-meaning people, spiritually minded people can want to like shun or push to the side. But if you can work with it in a way that with the intention of creating service and positive outcomes, your results and the amplitude of them go up so quickly, and to such greater heights.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, and I couldn't articulate that any better than you just put it. I think that's I totally agree. I like to think of it as a value exchange. When you create things of value, people are happy to trade you for that. It's, a common denominator for trading, which humans have been doing since the beginning of time. And I like to for me, it helps to I focus on creating value. How can we create more value for more people and make the world a better place? And when you do that, you're moving forward, and money's kind of like attracted to you, and you're just moving forward with good intention.
I agree. Yeah, value is the key. You're completely right.
And that's like the basic format. I don't get too deep, to be honest, into like all the financial systems, because there's other ways to make money. There's ways to make money. In fact, there's probably the ways to make the most money the fastest is probably not to bring a whole lot of value. The way to do it is actually like to be corrupt inside of the financial system. And you're just moving fucking numbers around. But I think for me, the starting point and like for me, everything should be simple, and that's something that we really get from our Indigenous elders. They're very clear on that. Everything should be simple. If it's not simple, there's something that you haven't integrated or like thought through or something. So That's my simple explanation, is create more value. But I do think that in modern day, it's really important to have an understanding of the financial system, which is what we try to provide in our program. And I think why people take it and they end up coming out the other side like, holy shit, I didn't know any of that.
Yeah.
And we're just scratching the surface. We're just giving basic stuff that I think everybody should be taught at a high school level.
Yeah, your program, and I think, I mean, I'm not sure. I think I went through it when it was at the beginning. I don't quite remember. Or it was pretty new. Is
Mm-hmm.
that correct?
Yeah, you did. You were like, yeah, you were one of the first ones in.
But I know you've added a lot on since then, but I remember going through it when it was pretty new. And I was like, this is a really freaking good crash course in getting everyone up to a certain aptitude with these things to be effective. Like you guys do a really good job of like not overwhelming people with the amount of information, but giving them enough to be dangerous. And that's all you really need. You don't need to like understand, quantum physics and, like be like have a calculus doctorate degree to
Yeah.
understand how this works and how to use it for for the powers of good, essentially. And I think your course does a great job of giving just like all that you need and nothing you don't.
I appreciate that feedback. That's kind of exactly what we were going for, is like I've taken a bunch of courses and a lot of them have been fluff, and there is a lot of like, information overwhelm and then, analysis paralysis. So trying to just cut the crap, give them exactly what they need, and then try to lay it out as an actionable format as possible, to get people going like step by step. And we're, obviously ever improving on that. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. That was kind of my next question. Was I was going to ask you kind of what your favorite part of our program, or generally just like working with us, is.
Yeah, well, again, I that kind of is like, I like I said from the beginning, like to work with people who already kind of have done what I want to do and be able to engage with them in a way where we can share value. Hopefully from some of our chats, you've taken some value from, my experiences and things like that. And I've taken a bunch from yours. And this idea, what attracted me to your course was this idea of being energy independent, because part of my big vision again is this freedom aspect, your health freedom, having financial freedom. The energy independence obviously is a huge shackle that people are unnecessarily bound with. You don't need to be on the grid. You don't need to do this stuff. So that's what attracted me. And it was that same thing. It was just like, I remember like I said, I get obsessed with stuff. So I just sat down. I was like, I'm just going to spend like 8 hours straight going through everything in the course. And it was so efficient of just like, this is what we've tried. These are the options. This is what we recommend. This is how it works. And I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to go, start installing people solar panels for them. Like, cause I don't, I'm not like, cause I'm not interested in that. I don't want that level of knowledge, but I know enough now to understand how to take my next step. Like, who do I need to talk to? Is this feasible for the plan I'm doing? Like, how is this going to integrate into my budget? It was just exactly like the perfect amount of stuff. So it was no part in particular. I mean, I guess the alternative energy in particular was helpful for me, but it was just being able to get what I need and nothing more, so I could be able to take my next step in my journey through this process and be able to keep moving, which, has been a success so far. And your course was definitely a big part of it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. And Yeah, I mean, I definitely, yeah, I mean, even this call has brought a lot of value to me, and I appreciate you for doing what you're doing and for being open to discussing it, because I think it all, well, I know that it also brings a ton of value to everybody else who listens to it, both in our groups and not. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's really what the community that we're creating is all about, is really just openly sharing that stuff. Like, I think there's a lot of stuff out there where people come in and they try to like be the expert and stuff. And, I think more than half of our teachings are actually based off of our own mistakes. And we're very like, I like to be able to be open about that. And it's really cool in our groups to see people coming together, because people ask questions all the time. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I can answer a lot of things, but when I don't know, I'm the first one to be like, yeah, I don't know. Like, here's my thought process of how I might approach finding the answer. But like, but then a lot of times other people come in and they'll be like, hey, I did this for 20 years. I know all about this. And everybody helps each other. So it's definitely a really great place to be. And thank you so much for contributing to that. Um, and in kind of conclusion with that, yeah, my last question was, what one piece of advice would you give to other people who are at the beginning of wanting to start a project like this, whether it's a retreat center, homestead, just the lifestyle that we're kind of moving towards?
Well, one piece of advice. It would be, well, one, it's completely possible. No matter where you are, it's completely possible. And we touched on it earlier in the call, but the way to manifest something, it's not like, people The Secret or whatever that book was. You can't just like think about it and be like, oh, I'm gonna think it into existence. And all of a sudden, like, you're gonna open your eyes one day and you're like living in this, paradise. The vision, it's clear as possible vision, which you get by taking these steps and doing research and connecting with people and continuously refining the clarity till your vision is crystal clear, mixing it with an emotion of how does it feel to have this vision happen? How does it feel for me to live here? How does it feel for other people to come visit? And how do I make them feel? And it's mixing that emotion with the clarity and centering it around, how do I be of service to other people around this? If you're just because you're like, I'm in a tough spot and it would be great not to have my electric bill and pay and grow my own food, and isn't this creative that I could maybe like make money from someone else if I put a tent in my backyard? You're kind of alone in that. It's not that you can't do it, but it's gonna be hard. If you're just like, how do I help a bunch of other people? How do I really add a lot of value to a bunch of other people? And that gets mixed in to this clear vision, and you can feel those emotions. All you need to do is follow the breadcrumbs then. Like, trust your intuition. It will come up what you're supposed to do, but you got to take the action. You got to email that person. You got to join the group. You got to buy Jamie's course. You got to go take the masterclass. You got to go on to Zillow, hire a real estate agent, whatever it is to get the idea into the third dimension. You have to do those things. But without the full mixture of like the vision, the intention, the feeling, and then the action, you have a broken link in the chain. But if you can combine those all together, you can kind of accomplish anything. So I don't know if that was a quick takeaway, but that's it.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. And I just want to say, for anybody listening who doesn't believe that taking those steps actually works, because I know it can be tough when people are down and out and in a tough spot financially, emotionally, health-wise, whatever it is. I know that I've been there in some really rough spots. And I would just say, watch more of our videos, watch more interviews and podcast episodes and stuff with people like you, FJ, because the stories are really cool and really miraculous. And when people start taking those actions, things happen. And there's so many cool stories that come up with that. And yeah, I heard one from a friend the other day who took our program, and they're in Hawaii, and he is looking to buy this lot. He talked to the owner, he got the whole blueprints for the whole lot, and they had no idea how they were going to buy it or like raise money for it at all. And they ended up in a cafe, and they roll out these blueprints. And as they roll them out, a guy walks by behind them, and he looks over their shoulder and says, "Oh, hey," he's like, I built that road." He's like, and he ended up, he's like, "I own the property right next door." He ends up owning like this crazy massive ranch, very wealthy guy. And he actually subdivided and sold off. He used to own the property that they're looking to buy. And they get to talking, and they talk about what they want to do with the property. And he's like, "Cool. Well, yeah, here's my number. If you need any financial backing or help, let me know." So it's like, and they didn't have anything from that point, right? Like they started taking the actions, and it just happens. And hearing those stories is really inspiring and hopeful. And the world, if we set our intentions right and we take action, the world helps us out sometimes.
Agreed. Agreed. I would say it helps us out all the time, and sometimes we just don't notice it.
Yeah.
Right? We just miss the signal. But like every time you want to do, you're creating your reality. It's like whether you're aware of it or not doesn't really matter. Doesn't change the fact that it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just paying attention.
Beautiful. Well, thanks, man. This has been really amazing. I really appreciate this. It was a super epic call. And I'm
Yeah.
super stoked for your project and to catch up. So yeah, I'm gonna hit end record here.